Gilles de Rais was a companion of Joan of Arc, a brilliant knight and commander, an aristocrat of noble birth, a national hero of France. But that's not what made him famous. He went down in history because of a trial that sentenced him to death. Today he's remembered as Bluebeard, a maniac, murderer, sorcerer, and devil worshipper. How did a Marshal of France become a criminal on the gallows? Was he truly guilty? And what really happened in 15th century France? Let's try to figure it out. Today we have a real medieval true crime. Gilles de Montmorency-Laval, Baron de Rais, Count de Brienne, Seigneur d'Ingrans and de Chantis, was born not just with a silver spoon in his mouth, but a golden one. He came into the world in 1404 in his ancestral castle. The key word here is Montmorency, one of the oldest, richest, and most politically powerful families in all of French history. When Gilles was 11, first his mother died, and then, a few months later, his father. The boy was raised by his maternal grandfather, Gilles de Craon, a major feudal lord. De Craon had no other heirs. His only son had fallen at the famous Battle of Agincourt. That meant Gilles was destined to inherit colossal wealth. This had two main consequences. First, Gilles received an excellent education, probably the best available in medieval Europe. Second, he grew up feeling almost unlimited freedom. For example, when he decided to marry, he simply kidnapped his bride, his own cousin. He liked her, but her dowry wasn't enough. So he also kidnapped his new mother-in-law and, together with his grandfather, pressured her to hand over her estates to the young couple. After months of lawsuits, threats, and even mysterious deaths of witnesses, they got what they wanted. The French king probably didn't approve of such lawlessness, but with the 100 Years' War raging, he had bigger problems. So the powerful de Craon could do whatever he pleased, and Gilles eagerly followed in his footsteps. By age 20, Gilles inherited everything. He was already a ruthless young man who believed he had the right to decide who lived and who died. The times encouraged such behavior. The war with England was going badly. France had suffered defeat after defeat and seemed doomed. The people thought only a miracle could save them. And that miracle appeared, Joan of Arc. Her message was simple. God is on our side. The voices in my head confirm it. So let's stop sulking and march straight at the English. That's exactly what the French needed. They began to win battles not because they were suddenly stronger, but because they believed in themselves again. In the end, as we know, France prevailed. Joan of Arc was a fanatical idealist. Gilles de Rais, on the other hand, was a ruthless opportunist. It's hard to imagine two people more different. Yet, Gilles was always by her side, fighting with her, sharing dangers, and doing much of the behind-the-scenes work, like logistics and army organization. He stood next to Joan at the coronation of King Charles VII in Reims. At just 24, he was made Marshal of France. But the title didn't make him a better man. Gilles kept on abusing his power, mixing greed with political intrigue. Once, he even attacked the convoy of Queen Yolande of Aragon, just to ransom her off and weaken his rivals at court. Still, for the time being, this was just typical medieval brutality. Things turned darker in 1432, after the death of his beloved grandfather. Soon, strange things began to happen. A 12-year-old apprentice went to de Rais's castle on an errand and vanished. Then more children disappeared. One of Giles's cousins claimed the English had taken them hostage, a bizarre explanation since no one understood why the English would need peasant kids. But the disappearances kept coming. A boy would approach the castle to ask for work or beg for food and never return. Parents were told odd excuses like he drowned while swimming. In reality, things were far more sinister. Gilles had become obsessed with the occult and was sacrificing children in bizarre rituals. Meanwhile, his lifestyle spiraled out of control. He threw lavish parties, flaunted a massive entourage, built his own theater with extravagant productions, and spent money like water. Soon he had to pawn jewels and estates. It got so bad that the king himself issued a decree forbidding Gilles from selling any more property. At court, his enemies gained the upper hand. He was left in disgrace, stuck on his estates, losing his mind. To restore his fortune and influence, he turned to the devil. Ritual circles, candles, grimoires, and of course, human sacrifices, the whole occult package. He even wrote out a contract offering his soul to Satan, but Satan never showed up. Instead, Gilles surrounded himself with shady figures like Francesco Prelati, a runaway monk posing as a necromancer. Prelati staged elaborate rituals, claiming the devil had just been there but slipped away seconds before. Gilles believed every word, and the killings went on. At the same time, Gilles remained a devout, almost fanatical Christian. He knew he was damning himself, but tried to bargain with heaven by building chapels and funding choirs. None of it helped. His relatives quietly stripped him of his remaining lands. Eventually, he went too far. After a dispute over an estate sale, he kidnapped a priest, the brother of the buyer, and demanded the land back in exchange. Unfortunately for him, the buyer worked for the Duke of Brittany. The Duke ordered an investigation. By now, Gilles had no allies left. Witnesses spoke of missing children and satanic rituals. In September 1440, the once celebrated Marshal stood trial, accused of murder, sodomy, heresy, and witchcraft. Torture wasn't even needed. Just the sight of the instruments was enough for him to confess. He was hanged and then burned. His ashes were buried. He was only in his 30s. His accomplices were executed too. That's the official version. Was it true? Hard to say. Trials back then had little in common with modern justice. But even in those times, child sacrifice was beyond the pale. The accusations against him fit too well with the evidence of disappearances. Still, his death was politically convenient. Authorities tolerated him for years, then struck only when it suited them. Centuries later, some tried to rehabilitate him. In 1992, a mock trial even cleared his name. But most historians agree he was guilty. Ironically, witnesses said the devil never appeared to him, unlike many witch trials where people swore they saw demons. Gilles was condemned not just as a sorcerer, but as a failure at sorcery. His story shocked people so much it morphed into legend. The fairy tale of Bluebeard, recorded by Charles Perrault in the 17th century and later popularized by Jacques Offenbach. In the fairy tale, Bluebeard murders his wives one after another. In reality, that's the one crime Gilles never committed. He did kidnap his cousin and force the church to marry them, but she survived him. For all his monstrous crimes, he remained, in his own twisted way, a faithful husband.